Blog Talk Radio.
The purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. Purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. You're next to me. You're next to me.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host and founder of Alzheimer Speaks, Lori LeBay. And for those of you that are new to our show, I always just like to give people a little idea of who the heck we are and why we do what we do. Bottom line, Alzheimer Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And we believe that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and having everyday conversations like we're going to have here on the radio platform, that we're going to be able to remove the stigmas and the isolation that is attached to memory loss and help people living with the disease live with purpose. Together, we can help everybody have a better understanding of the true needs of this disease. At our core, we feel really strongly about collaborative efforts and feel that that's really the only way that we're going to win this battle against dementia. And I know it's working because all of you have been so kind to like us and click on us and share and tweet and share these episodes with your circle of friends and colleagues. And why that is so important, even though it just takes you a second to do that, is because you never know who in your circle needs this information next. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you've put in, even if you think that it's not much work, by doing those likes and shares, because we were named the #1 influencer online regarding Alzheimer's, according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz, and that surely would not have happened without all of your support and all of your kind efforts. So, again, you are making a big difference. Every 4 seconds, somebody in the world is getting diagnosed with this disease, and we have to come together to be able to come up with proper solutions in terms of how to deal with this disease. Today, I hope you'll join our conversation, and you can do that in a couple of fashions. You can actually call into the radio show, and that number is 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. And all you have to do is push 1, and then I'll see that you're in my queue, and I'll know that you're there. Otherwise, you can use our chat box. I will be monitoring that throughout the show. So just type in your questions and comments, and we'll pull those in and get your voice heard. Now, before I introduce our first guest, I always just like to make some acknowledgments to some organizations and movements that I think are extremely important. The first I want to mention is the Purple Angel Project, which is the new global symbol for dementia. If you're not aware of that, please check that out. You can go to alzheimerspeaks.com and go to our About page, and we have a tab all about the Purple Angel Project, and I would love to talk to you offline, or on the second half of the show during open mic, we can discuss this project as well. Many people are, contacting me wanting to know where they can get support, and they're looking for Alzheimer's associations all over in the world. And so for that, I think the easiest mode for people to look is just to go to Alzheimer's Disease International. They are the organization that kind of coordinates all of the Alzheimer's associations around the world. So you'll be able to see which organization is closest to you. Plus, there's tons tons of global information on that site. They just had another meeting with the G7. Mark Wortman, the executive director, was on our show not too long ago. So there's lots of great information there. There is also the Alzheimer's Studies group, which has a couple of clinical trials going on right now. One is in its third trial for tau. The other is a fairly new trial for frontal temporal lobe. And you can go to the Alzheimer's Studies.com, or you can go to the Alzheimer's team on Facebook and find them. And then if you're looking for a more holistic approach, check out the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. In fact, we just posted one of their articles on our blog about exercise, which has gotten a lot of activity, not only on the blog, but through private emails as well as LinkedIn groups, just kind of been bouncing off the walls on the importance of exercise when it comes not only to dementia, but for all of us in taking care of ourselves. The Lewy Body Association and the Frontal Temporal Lobe and the National Aphasia Association all target different types of symptoms of dementia. And so, if you're dealing with any of those, I would highly recommend that you go to those individual sites as well. And then a few things on kind of the social aspect. If you're not familiar with the memory cafes, again, on AlzheimersSpeaks.com, go to our About page. There is information on these social support groups that have been over in the UK for some time, but have just been with us the past couple of years, and they're really starting to catch on and grow. There's probably about 100 of them in the US. It's hard to track all of them because they're really almost volunteer-based. And people are very busy. If you like music or your person with dementia likes music, check out Choral Health. They have a program called Music First. It's actually a portable app that you can get as well, and it's like a music prescription. Music is so powerful and helps us change our mood, so it can help with getting people to eat, getting people to wake up, go to sleep, get in a better mood, all of those types of things. And then Puzzle with Me is just a great puzzle designed specifically for adults with dementia. Jiminy Wicket is a social interaction piece along with education, and that basically is a croquet game that's been adapted. Families can use it. Group homes or care facilities can use it very easily. They bring it into schools and educate the kids, and they team a person with dementia up with someone. So it's a one-on-one great activity that takes place. So let me go ahead and introduce a couple people to you here. First, I'm going to go ahead and pull in Michelle. Michelle Rimmold is a intern of ours on Alzheimer's Speaks, and she's dipping her toe into the radio portion of what we do. How are you doing today, Michelle?
Good.
Well, that's good. I'll go ahead and introduce our official guest here, who is Cameron Camp, who is a PhD. He is a noted psychologist who currently serves as the Director of Research for the Center for Applied Research in Dementia. Dr. Camp gives workshops on designing cognitive and behavioral interventions for dementia on an international basis. His research has been funded by grants from the National Institute of Health, known as NIH, and also the National Alzheimer's Association. So welcome, Dr. Camp. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we are really excited to have you. Before I get into our formal kind of line of questions here, I always like to ask people, have you been personally touched by dementia with, either family or a close friend?
Well, my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's disease, and we've been in-home caregivers. We've also worked with family members in terms of going through the journey and doing final decisions about placement into a nursing home, how to continue to maintain relationship with the resident in a nursing home, and how to have better visits with a person with dementia. So we're still in that journey ourselves, and this is something that's close and personal to us.
Okay. Well, it's always interesting for us to know a little background, because it's, some people, like myself, have been on this journey for a long, long time, personally touched. Others, it can be through work, and some just kind of fall into it, and they're not quite sure how they landed in this space. And so it's always nice to get a little bit of background. Well, let's start out talking about the Montessori method of education. You've translated the Montessori method of education as a way of working with people with dementia. Can you explain what exactly is the Montessori method, and how and why does it work with people with dementia?
Sure. One of the first things to dispel is the idea that if you use this approach, you treat a person with dementia as if they were a child. That is not the case. The Montessori method is founded on a set of very critical values, and those involve treating every person, regardless of age, with respect, dignity, and equality. And so the idea is how to enable caregivers, and both professional as well as non-professional, to be able to live these values as they interact with a person with dementia. The second thing is that her approach involves a rehabilitation perspective. So it was not only a way of education, but also a way of enabling people to function at the highest level possible, given where they were at physically and cognitively, and to be able to circumvent any deficits they had. For example, how do you enable a 2.5-year-old to put on their own coat? You lay it out backwards, you have them stick their arms in it with their arms above their heads, and it slides on. And by arranging the task that way, the 2.5-year-old can put on their own coat. And they actually want to do that. They like to do that. And they will say, I'd like to do this myself. What often happens is the child is told, well, it's much quicker if I dress you. And, of course, you see the parallels with regard to dementia care, where staff members might say, it's a lot easier if I just go ahead and dress you, when a resident, say, in a nursing home might be wanting to do more things for themselves. Montessori had an interesting quote. She said, everything that you do for me, you take away from me. And that's something that is transforming when people start to think about it. My wife and I, my wife's a Montessori teacher over 20 years and retired now and helping with our work internationally. We had dinner with a couple whose the wife had been science advisor to the Prime Minister of Australia, and she had the diagnosis of dementia. The husband said, don't call me a caregiver. I am an enabler. My job is to enable my wife to function at the highest level possible, and to enable her to be as independent as possible, and that is my job. His wife said, when I got the diagnosis, I was basically written a prescription for disengagement. I was told what I wouldn't be able to do anymore, and I told the physician to take a hike. And so it's a way of thinking that maps on very nicely to dementia and dementia care. It's about looking at the person with dementia, not looking at dementia, but looking at the person, and to start thinking in a different way. What we do in our training is we talk about non-pharmacologic treatment for dementia. And one of the first steps is to talk about the idea of thinking about dementia as a disability. If you begin to think of it as a disability, you begin to immediately shift your perspective in terms of what you can do, what you try. And so you begin to think in terms of how can you circumvent deficits in order to enable a person to function more independently, to function at their highest level of capability. Maria Montessori said that when a person and their environment mesh, when the environment challenges but enables success, you see a process that she called normalization. And we think it's a really nice term. Our job is to create normalizing environments for persons with dementia, environments that support them so that they can not have to deal with excess disability caused by less supportive environments. We say a person with dementia is a normal person who has cognitive deficits. And that's very important, because what it means is if you can circumvent the deficits, what you see is a normal person. And people prefer that. It's what any person wants, with or without disabilities, is to be in an environment, a situation where they are part of a community, where they have meaningful social roles, where they're engaged, where they can contribute, where they can be as independent as possible, and where they have choice. And so in a Montessori classroom, these are all the values that are emphasized. Children learn to make choices and to make good choices. They're given the capacity to perform at a much higher level than they might in more standard settings. It enables 4-year-olds to be able to read, but also to be able to help clean up after lunch and to be responsible for their environment. So Montessori education goes from 18 months to 18 years, and you can map on different types of activity to different stages of cognitive capacity, physical capacity. And so we use that as our template for how to create non-pharmacologic treatment for persons with dementia. And when we do this, when we can create normalizing environments, it's a very transforming sort of thing.
You know, you made a couple of comments that I thought were really good, and one that I would like to see more people focus on, and that is thinking of this disease as a disability, because you're correct. There is a huge difference when we accept something as a disability, then we actively go in and try to change it and make there be a better new normal for that category, of individual. And right now we just kind of shun it and push it away or try to ignore it or be in denial. I mean, there's so many different things that are going on. And disabilities, it's all about bridging them to being as powerful and as able as possible and as purposeful. And it's just a whole different approach. And I think it's a way for people to remove some of the fear that's wrapped around this disease as well. The other thing that I like is that you mentioned, the Montessori method is really a non-pharmacological pharmaceutical mode in terms of dealing with life and behaviors, and we all have behaviors. That's another term I don't really care for. We usually label thing a behavior when we don't like the outcome, and so forth. But this whole social approach seems to really be gaining ground, and you're hearing so much talk about the psychosocial importance of dealing with this disease versus what we're seeing with the outcomes from the drug companies at this point. What are your thoughts between the two?
Yeah, I think the kindest thing that can be said about pharmacological treatment for dementia at this point is that it's been disappointing. And what we're looking at is a very different way of thinking, a very different approach. Most of our training involves giving people new ways of thinking about things. For example, what if instead of calling it Down's syndrome, it had been called Down's disease?
Mm-hmm.
under those circumstances, would we have seen, special education programs for persons with Down syndrome? If they have Down's disease, would we have seen workshops for persons to be able to, with Down syndrome, to be able to have access to education, to jobs, to the larger social environment? I have an older daughter with learning disabilities, so this is something also very, very close to me. Another way of thinking is, what if we called it Alzheimer's syndrome? What if we started thinking in terms of creating, for example, cognitive ramps? We have ramps for people with disabilities in mobility. Where are the ramps, the cognitive ramps, to enable persons with dementia to have better access to the environment, to have better access to our society, to community? In Europe, for example, in Bruges, Belgium, they have what's called a dementia-friendly community. And as a community of 100,000 people, they've made a conscious decision to make their community available to people with dementia. There are stores that have signs in the shop windows, and the sign is a picture of a handkerchief with a knot in it, the old symbol for remembering something. And if a store has that sign in the window, it means their staff have been trained to be able to work with people with memory impairment. Dementia-friendly communities are springing up in Europe, Belgium, Scotland, in Australia. There's some start in the United States, I've heard. But it is a way of thinking about our obligation as a society to making our environment accessible, to making our society accessible to persons with dementia. We need to think in terms of living well with dementia, just like we try to live well with diabetes, like we try to live well with cancer. It's about getting the most out of every day rather than simply focusing on the deficits that are associated with dementia and believing that we are powerless. It's interesting that the choice of words that we use when we look at the, quote, symptoms, end quote, of dementia are interesting. In this country, sometimes they're called challenging behaviors. In Australia, they're called behaviors of concern. In Canada, it's interesting, they're called responsive behaviors, and I like that term. The implication is that when you see a person exhibiting a behavior, as you were saying, it is in response to an unmet need. It is a form of communication. And so it is our job to understand why this is happening, what that need is, and how we can fulfill it. When a person with dementia is engaged in meaningful activity, they cannot at the same time exhibit a responsive behavior. This is a treatment. You get a reduction in responsive behaviors as a byproduct of giving people engagement, meaningful activity, social roles, and a better quality of life. And it's also dose dependent. Think of a drug that could eliminate the effects, the symptoms of depression without curing it, with no side effects, unlike most drugs out on the market today. And it has a short half-life, so it works for about an hour. If you had a person with depression and you had that drug available, you would give it to them every hour. If it had no toxic buildup, no side effects, and that is how you would manage the symptom. We have non-pharmacologic treatment for dementia that works just like that drug. It is a matter of, will we be delivering this in a schedule that's most effective or not? If you give the treatment once a month, we know what effects you get, once a week, once a day. But if you deliver it throughout the day, you get amazing effects. And so our emphasis is to enable people to create environments that are normalizing, that enable people with dementia to be engaged in meaningful activity throughout the day. And in those circumstances, you get normalized individuals who are happy and feel confident and who are living well. And as a consequence, caregivers are living better. Their quality of life is improved. You see reductions in the use of psychotropic medications or the sleeping aids, because if a person's awake during the day, they sleep at night. There's really no downside to this. And so our job is to work with persons and with organizations to try to enable them to create the infrastructure necessary to deliver these non-pharmacologic treatments, these interventions, in a way that's most effective.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I did want to just mention on the dementia-friendly communities, we actually launched, I was involved with what we think was the first dementia-friendly community in the U.S. in Watertown last fall, and there's a lot of activity going on. Minnesota's Act on Alzheimer's is really getting very big. Most of the states are, starting to really look at this very seriously. Wisconsin just signed on to become dementia-friendly. We're going to be doing big initiatives over there. I'm going to go out to Pennsylvania later this fall, who's doing a lot of work. So there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. The sad part is nobody's connecting the dots. And that's exactly one of the reasons I developed Alzheimer's Speaks, was to try to get that information out, because I think when we talk about it, we're able to generate excitement and energy and share ideas, and things just happen so much quicker. Michelle, I know you've got a question. Why don't you go ahead and toss that out to Dr. Camp?
Yes, I was just wondering, you were talking about trainings, and I was just curious what other types of trainings you provide and who are the trainings for?
Sure. We've actually just launched a new website for caregivers. It's called Living Better with Dementia, all one word, .com, livingbetterwithdementia.com. And, for instance, it has frequently asked questions page, such as how do I deal with repetitive questioning? What if someone's always asking about have they taken their medications or not? And then very effective evidence-based interventions that can be applied in a variety of settings, including a home setting. We also do training in how to enable persons with dementia to lead activities for other persons with dementia, which is called resident-assisted Montessori programming. Again, we go back to the Montessori classroom, where older children present lessons to younger children. We have seen, for example, a resident in a nursing home lead an activity for 20 persons, other residents with dementia, for an hour and a half without assistance from staff. That's kind of like the upper bound of what we've taken it to so far, but it's very possible to enable persons with dementia to take on that role. We also do training in how to create resident-driven communities. We use a thing called the social life template, and it's all about how to give people choice throughout the day, because that is really what's critical for quality of life. I always tell people to think in terms of what you're wearing right now, and if someone had come into your home and told you that this was what you were going to wear today, even though it's the same outfit, how would you feel about having to wear it if you weren't given a choice in it? How would you feel about the clothes? How would you feel about the person who said you have to wear it? How would you feel about yourself? So even a little thing like holding up two blouses and saying, which one of these would you like to wear? And having the person point, if they can't talk to it, to talk to make the choice. Or if they have difficulty with that, hold up one blouse and say, would you like to wear this today? It's a little thing, but it's a big thing. And so it's about how can we infuse choice throughout the day, throughout people's lives. How can we create committees of residents, for example, who would welcome new residents to their community. So we do training in that. We also do training in a technique called spaced retrieval, which we focus on, for the most part, rehabilitation specialists, but others can learn it as well. But it involves how to enable a person with memory deficits to remember new information or new associations, like lock your wheelchair before you stand, get your walker before you walk, look at a card on the wall next to your bed that has safe transfer techniques, to be able to do safe transfer when you get up in the morning, things like what do you do when you're bored. I go to my to-do list. It's a way of putting very specific associations into long-term memory through this training technique, and it's a way to address highly salient issues. How do you teach a person with Alzheimer's disease and osteoporosis to remember to always grab the arms of a chair before they sit down so that they won't miss the chair and hit the floor and possibly break a hip? We know over the age of 85, a broken hip has a greater than 50% mortality risk. But we can train persons with dementia to be able to learn new procedures, especially to address things like safety. So we do training in that, in a variety of other non-pharmacologic treatments. We're also, through our foundation, it's the Frida Joyce Brent Foundation, we're doing training now in training persons with dementia to learn how to play musical instruments. And our goal is to be able to put together a concert video of persons with dementia playing musical instruments in concert, all of whom have learned how to play the instruments after the onset of dementia. And we're doing it exactly as Lori was talking about, to fight stigma and to demonstrate that persons with dementia have capacity to learn new things if they're trained in the right procedures, usually circling back to Montessori methods. And they have the capacity to continue to learn and do new things. So those are some examples of training that we give. We also do training for family members on how to manage responsive behaviors in home settings, as well as we do trainings for professional caregivers as well on that topic.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fantastic. It's very interesting. I love the whole concert idea. You know, there was I don't know if you've heard of the new website Dementia Mentors, which is a site for people with early memory loss. But the man who actually developed the site, built the site, has dementia. Used to be a programmer, didn't think that he could still do it, and was given the opportunity. Did an amazing job with the site. And it's really neat because they're matching up newly diagnosed patients with those who have been in the trenches for a while, so that they can totally understand and empathize with the fear and the sadness and the loss, and you know what's life going to look like, and then help connect them on multiple levels, and help give them purpose and tap them into the advocacy. Your new site is absolutely fantastic, and I did put a link in the chat box for people. Again, it's Better Living with Memory Loss, or Better Living with Dementia.
LivingBetterWithDementia.com.
Yep. I'm looking at your tagline here, and that's why I'm getting confused, so I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
But it's really very user-friendly and lots of great information here, on your site. So I would definitely tell people to go there and check that out. I also, my brain's running a little slow today. When we were talking about behaviors and what different people around the world, call it and use for terms and stuff, one of the things that I call instead of a behavior typically is just a reaction. And I try to get people to understand that we all basically use the same formula no matter who we are. No matter what our situation is, but it's our past experiences plus our current attitude create our perceptions, and then our perceptions trigger our reactions. And then when we don't like the reaction, that's when we point the finger and say, hey, it's wrong.
No, I hear you.
And the title of our program here is, talks about put your detective hat on. And I think that's one of the things that is very neat about what you're doing is you're teaching people how to look deeper at what is going on and get to the whys of why things are happening. And even when you were talking about, how do you approach somebody about putting a sweater on, in terms of giving choice and being dignified and thinking, would we really want to be taking orders all day long? And that's a lot of times what care partners do, thinking that they're being really efficient, thinking that they're really caring for somebody. But when we lose the ability to choose or to really have involvement in decisions, we withdraw. It gets old.
Yeah.
And a person with dementia is no different, on that scale at all. So, you talked a lot about providing training, internationally. You had mentioned, you're in Singapore and Australia and kind of all over. What kind of reception are you getting here in the U.S. versus internationally?
It's interesting. Internationally, what's happening is that there's a real push now that I see for non-pharmacologic treatment for dementia. I see government and national programs now that are starting to invest in that. And the reason for that is twofold. First, they're looking at the numbers. They're looking at the number of people in the pipeline who will be developing dementia, who will be getting older. And the numbers, as you know, are very scary. Combining that with the number of people who are being trained to deal with this. The second thing is they're looking at the results that they're getting up to this date in terms of a medical approach to dealing with this, including reactions or behaviors, and the use of pharmacology as a first line of defense, as a first line of treatment, just isn't playing out well out in the world. And some governments are realizing this. And so I see in France that they're starting to really embrace, for example, this approach. There are actually places in France, in the south of France, where if a long-term care facility begins using Montessori methods as their primary way of working with dementia, they actually get additional funding than if they weren't, which is something of a miracle. In Australia now, we're looking at disseminating results from research that was conducted at Monash University in Melbourne to enable family members to engage persons with dementia more effectively, and they're making resources available. In Switzerland, and there are groups of nursing homes now that have adopted Montessori approaches, resident-driven community approaches, who are banding together to be able to combine their resources, their ideas to support each other. And Singapore is just launching Montessori approaches for dementia. Italy, they're actually a group of people meeting in Milan this week to begin discussing how to disseminate that. In the U.S., it's a mixed bag. There are some places that have adopted this approach, and there are others that still follow more traditional approaches, as you know. And, we have a national plan for Alzheimer's disease, but if you look at it, most of the funding goes to research and emphasizes the pharmacology. And we'll see how that plays out over the long run. But other places away from the United States are taking a different approach to treatment.
Yeah, they really are. I was lucky enough just to meet with an Australian group and got like 8 hours of their time when they were here on tour. In fact, they're just on their way back, and it's incredible just how they think and how they work. The grassroots and the academic sides really merge. We're here in the States, not so much, and they really get big picture and quality of life, and it's very exciting. And there's more and more of us in the U.S. kind of stomping our feet, trying to get the word out and changing things, from if it's memory cafes or Montessori schools or the Purple Angel Project or whatever. And I think the buzz can't be stopped, and it's just a matter of time. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting stuff what's going on. Not moving fast enough for me, but I always think it was moving a lot slower. So I'm grateful for the progress that we're making here.
I know, I agree with you totally on that. That's exactly the way I feel as well. So yeah.
Well, great, Michelle. Do you want to pose the next question?
Yep. You have a new book with interesting title, Hiding the Stranger in the Mirror. What is your book about?
Yeah, it's a book that, as Lori was talking about before, teaches people how to think like a detective. As a matter of fact, that's one of the subtitles is, thinking like a detective to deal with responsive behaviors in persons with memory loss. And so, for example, the title, it's all done in stories, sort of like an Oliver Sacks, book with case histories. So it's all done in stories as a way of teaching people, first, how to ask the question, why is this happening, whenever we encounter a reaction in a person with dementia. We always say the answer to that question cannot be because they have dementia. Why is this happening? Because they have dementia. How do we know they have dementia? Because this is happening. It's a circular argument. It doesn't fix anything, and it doesn't explain anything. And as a researcher, that always drives me crazy when I see circular logic. So the real question is, what would cause a person to have this reaction, and maybe even better, what would cause me to have this reaction under the same circumstances? So, for example, the hiding the stranger in the mirror, and that refers to a case where I was doing some consulting in New Orleans at a day center, and they had a new client in this day center, a gentleman who had more advanced dementia, and he was being brought into the bathroom for toiling on the first day he was there, and he saw his reflection in the mirror, and he said, "Hey, that guy stole my sweater." And he says, "Give it back," and the guy in the mirror waves at him, and he puts up his fist, and the guy in the mirror puts up his fist, and they have to drag him away, and he's pointing, saying, "I'm coming back for you," and the guy in the mirror is pointing at him, and so staff said to me, "What are we supposed to do?" And I said, "Well, the first question is, why is this happening?" They looked at me, and they said, "Well, he's got wrong answer." Okay. And so, one thing we know that often happens in more advanced dementia is a person may lose their ability to recognize their reflection in a mirror. They may view themselves as much younger than that. It's interesting. We've done research on this, and we give, for example, a person a name tag in mirror writing, and so it comes out right in the reflection, and they'll say, "Hey, she's got my name." So it's an interesting phenomena that occurs. Usually the person either likes or hates the reflection. Sometimes they'll say, "I don't want to take a bath. Why is that? Someone's watching me." I say, "Well, show me the person." They go to the bathroom, they point to the reflection. So in this case, he didn't like the guy. Even though he could recognize his own sweater, he couldn't recognize himself. So after that, the staff got a window shade, put it above the mirror. Before they would bring him in, they would pull the window shade down, so they hide the strangers, no one there looking at him. And he can be toileted, and when he leaves, they can lift the window shade, and other people can use the mirror. And so that's an example of a non-pharmacologic very simple, straightforward treatment for that particular situation. And so, we look at a wide variety of situations, and we try to give people training in how to answer the question. So, for example, we always say the first thing to look for is a physical cause, for a reaction. Is the person in pain that's not been diagnosed? Do they have an infection? Is their blood sugar bouncing around? So we always try to eliminate physical causes first. If that's not the issue, then we look at the level of stimulation in the environment. Is it a boring environment, understimulating? There you often get apathy, or a person will suddenly do something to get attention. If it's overstimulating, if it's too much noise, too much going on, you usually get fight or flight. The person will withdraw, won't come from their room, or they'll get hyper agitated. And so ideally, what you want is a normalizing environment, and that's where Montessori programming comes in. And you want to be able to give them activity that challenges, that enables success, that's meaningful and engaging. If that's not the issue, we ask, who owns the problem? So, for example, I was working with a woman who was taking care of her husband at home. He had Alzheimer's, and she said, when the grandchildren come over, he can't remember their names, and when he can't remember their names, he gets very agitated, and then we all get agitated. And so I suggested to her that perhaps if you let the grandchildren wear name tags, very big print, kids love to wear name tags, and he can just call them by name by reading their name tags. And she said, yeah, but that's cheating. So there the situation involves an intervention that does not involve the person with dementia. And a lot of times to deal with the challenges of dementia, it involves training caregivers, or sometimes family members, or inspectors, or people who write regulations, to think in different ways. Sometimes they own the problem, not necessarily, the person with dementia. Again, that's where that whole idea of everything you do for me, you take away from me. It's targeted at enabling people with dementia to have choice and to be enabled to be more independent. If that's not the issue, then we look at the social and the physical environment. Do we need to tweak the physical environment? It's very common, for instance, if you have on the floor a round circle that's a different color, like a darker color than other parts of the floor, or a round throw rug that's a different color. It can be viewed as a whole, and or a cliff if it's a straight line. There was a woman who was in a nursing home, and when she was taken to her room, when she asked to take a nap, she suddenly got very agitated and said, don't make me lie down on the bed. There's spiders on it. Well, what was happening was that she had lace curtains, and when at that particular time of year the sun was shining through those lace curtains, you had a pattern of splotches of light and dark that were moving, and for her the interpretation was you have spiders there. And so rather than giving her like Ativan or some drug for anxiety, the fix was to get different curtains so that the spiders weren't there. But, it all starts by asking, why is this happening, and not accepting, they have dementia as the fix and or the explanation. And then, you look for the social environment. Once again, do we need to change the way people interact with persons with dementia? One of the things that we talk about is a thing we call the can, all right? And it's tied to the idea that we want to eliminate the word can when we're talking with a person with dementia. Can you do this? Can you do this? We like to change that to would you. would you? See, can is a test. And if you say, can you do this, and they do it, it's like you expected them to, and it's no accomplishment. If they can't, they failed. Would you shifts it from a test to a choice. It's a little thing that's a very simple thing. And the can is you put a can in the room where you do most of your work with a person with dementia. And if you say the word can, you put a quarter or 50 cents if you're in Europe into the can every time you say the word can when you're interacting with the person. And sort of like a cursing jar that we used to have in our house when I was growing up. And it sort of sensitizes people to whether or not they're to listen to the words they're saying and not simply say them out of habit. So can we shift the social environment? And then finally, the last thing is can new learning be a way of addressing reactions or responsive behaviors? So, for example, we look at classical conditioning. A real simple example of that is what would happen if you played a particular song in a dining room, 5 minutes before lunch every day. How long would it take before, if you're in a residential setting, the residents begin to come into lunch when they hear that song? And the answer is not very long. And the first ones to learn will be telling the other ones, didn't you hear the song? And, of course, then the person who should press the button to play the song should be the person who's always asking, when is lunch going to start? So you sort of shift their emphasis on worrying about when lunch is to giving them a social role so that they can let everybody know when lunch is. And, of course, the people should determine what the song should be. So there's an example of classical conditioning. It's interesting. My wife was doing a Saturday parent-teacher conference and with a dad, and he couldn't find a sitter for his 3-year-old, so he brought his little girl with him to the conference. And he meets with my wife, and then he's done, and he says to his daughter, who was, doing work in the classroom there at the Montessori school, come on, it's time to go. And she goes, I can't. And he said, why not? She said, I have not heard the leaving song. And, of course, they play a particular song in the classroom when it's time to leave, and that means you put your work away and get ready to leave. And all of these, techniques we can track back to 100 years of field testing in the Montessori method. So we stand on pretty solid ground there.
Well,
that, and then we talk about, again, classical conditioning, as we talked about, as well as operant conditioning, antecedent behavior consequence, and then things like spaced retrieval and priming, as I mentioned before. All of these tools, all of these treatments are available. The idea that we're powerless in the face of dementia is simply wrong, and that is really the biggest barrier that we have to fight against, is the idea that if a person has this diagnosis that they'll never, there's nothing we can do, and the person, can't show improvement in any area. I was in a special care unit in a nursing home, and I asked them, give me your biggest challenge. They said, we don't have any problems at all. So I said, this is a dementia unit, right? And they said, sure. And I said, well, all right. Do you have people who ask the same question over and over and over again? Yeah, we got that. And people who want to run out the door as soon as it's open, yeah, we got that. And I went down the list of the top 20, and they had all of them. And then they said, but, we don't have any problems. That's just what dementia is.
I love it.
That's learned. That's learned helplessness on a system-wide scale. And that is the barrier that we have to get past. This therapeutic nihilism that we're helpless and there's nothing we can do. That is simply wrong. We have plenty of tools. They're evidence-based. They work. They're effective. This is not about huge money cost. These things are cheap or free for the most part. It's just about enabling people to think in the right way and to, start trying to use these things.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you because I'm not sure if I misinterpreted when you were just made that comment. Were you saying that they were oblivious that there were any problems, or I interpreted it that it wasn't a problem, it was just part of the disease, and some of it they were just accepting and had learned how to deal with it. So I was confused.
No, they hadn't learned how to deal with it. They didn't learn how to deal with it. They just said, we just have to sit and take it. We just have to be patient because there's nothing we can do. This is what dementia is. And so, the typical response is, here's a bullet, bite it. That's all we can do. Be patient. And they're not going to get better, and they can't learn anything new, and it's a downward spiral. And, it's all of those stigmas and negative stereotypes you were talking about, show up there in the belief systems of these caregivers. And as a result, it's an incredibly frustrating job. It's incredibly frustrating work, and there's this sense of helplessness and depression, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's the catch. It's about changing those beliefs. It's about enabling people to believe that there are things they can do, empowering them, making them have a sense of efficacy. It's like a daughter who comes to talk to her mom, and she says, tell me a story about when you were 6 years old. She writes it down. Tell me a story about when you were 6 years old. When I was 6 years old. Gets stories from, her mom that way, and prints them out in big print and make sure mom can read it. Brings the granddaughter, and the grandmother reads to the granddaughter stories about when this little girl's mother and grandmother was her age, and the little girl says, read them again, and the daughter keeps gathering more stories, and she enables her grandmother to be the keeper of the family history. And there's a little girl who wants to go to a nursing home on visits and enjoys it. And, it's about empowering that daughter. It's about empowering that grandmother. There's no cost to that. All it requires is a different mindset, a different way of thinking when you go to visit.
Mm-hmm. Now, I can't believe our hour has flown by so quickly. I could talk with you all day. You're doing great things. But we do have some comments from people in our audience, and I just wanted to be able to recap some of those. Alva said that she had given a sermon at her church yesterday on the subject of dementia called Brain Aging, a New Story. And she said most of what I said goes right along with Dr. Camp's program, and it's so exciting to learn about the non-pharma technique. She said she can't wait to review all of the resources on your website and the paid services that offers or free resources. And don't forget his book, too. Again, the title of the book is Hiding the Stranger in the Mirror, and you can get that from the website, or it's on Amazon as well.
Right.
Then Terry had noted, she said, thanks for advocating a way for medications approaches to treating health, just getting rid of those. She says it's always kind of been the last resort. You're working with she wants to know if you're working with the connection between toxins and nutrition at all to improve brain health, if you're involved in any studies on that level at all.
Yeah, we're in communication with people here in Cleveland who are involved with brain health research and sort of monitoring that. One of the things we always say is, take care of the heart and you take care of the brain. But also to advocate, once again, that just because a person gets a diagnosis of dementia doesn't mean that exercise and good diet is no longer important. It may be even more important. And so everything that people do to, quote, prevent, end quote, dementia, don't stop if you get a diagnosis, and it doesn't mean that you failed. You have to get rid of that idea. It's about being healthy and living well as you possibly can with or without a diagnosis of dementia.
Agree. Terry's also asking if you found anything regarding gut bacteria. She's saying with autistic kids versus normal, there's been some studies, and the guts of obese versus healthy, more healthy weight people. Have you been involved with any of those studies of the gut bacteria?
No, I haven't been involved. With that.
Okay, because I have heard a lot of talk about that, but I haven't heard anything really specific, coming out of that. I'm going to see what else. She was just talking about tunnel vision around health, forgetting the connection between overall health and the toxins as connected to the brain, and how the brain removes those plaques and toxins if the liver and gut are in overload. They really can't do the job they're supposed to do. She's also asking exactly why they are losing their memory. She says they're not crazy. It's logical. There is a logic behind their actions, but we on the outside are missing the pieces of the puzzle, which you kind of talked about already, on that. And then Elva jumped in to say, Dr. Camp said Cleveland. Does he work with Dr. Peter Whitehouse?
Peter's a good friend, actually, and we've done some work together, and we always stay in touch. So we actually have a publication that came out last year in the Gerontologist together. So that's a long way of saying yes.
Okay, so we're just at our hour here, and we've got a little extra time, but I don't know what your schedule is like. But I would like to know if you want to share, and if you have the time to share with us your recent research projects that you're working on.
Sure. We've just finished a project where we trained nurse assistants to do an activity with residents with dementia, and it's a category sorting activity on things I like and things I don't like, using pictures and labels for the pictures. This was in collaboration with Michelle Bourgeois at University of South Florida. And it was interesting because we especially looked at nurse assistants from other countries, and we looked at how to enable people who don't speak English as the first language to learn the likes and dislikes, to have a better relationship with residents who are English-speaking as their first language. And that was very effective. And we're just about to start, just got funding for a project to enable staff to train residents on how to do better wayfinding in dementia care residences, how to enable residents to be able to navigate more effectively in those environments. So that's funding from the National Institute on Aging, which is a branch of NIH, and we are getting ready to literally have our first meeting with that on Monday. So we're looking forward to it.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now, we have listed on the radio page several different links for information that you have, but there's also a link pointing back to my blog where I can put more stuff on that, because you have all kinds of great resources for people, and we definitely don't want people to miss those. And again, I would highly recommend this book that Dr. Camp wrote, Hiding the Stranger in the Mirror. It's an easy read. It is just filled with tons of short little stories of ways to do and not do things. It kind of lets you know how to do it. Is there one story in particular in the book that you'd like to share with us before you have to leave?
Let's see. A quick one. There was a group of nurse assistants who had long hair and had worked at a place for a long time. It was May, and they decided to cut their hair short for summer hairdo. And when they came back to work, the female residents with dementia would not allow them to take them for baths or showers because they said, we don't want men to be, watching us. And so the question then was, why is this happening? And there we went to, the ABCs, the operant conditioning. And the A is for antecedent. And so is there something that changed in the environment? Is there something that changed before the behavior that would cause the new behavior? And so if you use the formula, you have to ask yourself, okay, what changed? And the idea was that they cut their hair. So using the formula once again, if you want to get the old behavior back, you have to get the old antecedent back. So the fix was to get a bunch of cheap, long-haired wigs, put them on hooks, put the wigs on, then invite the ladies to take a bath or a shower. And under those circumstances, there was no problem because they had transformed themselves back into women. So it's an example of a very specific issue that was being dealt with that was handled by the general formula. This is a way of translating that approach into a very specific intervention. And it shows the power of using this way of thinking and to be able to home it down to a specific challenging situation.
Well, the book is nicely laid out. It's kind of fun. You break your chapters down because, again, this really is about becoming a detective, for solving problems. And so you start out with know the perpetrator, know the vice, gather the evidence, and then use the formula to figure out, what really is going on. And, in the end, you have some kind of examples for people to work through to try to figure out what's causing the situation and, how are they going to attack it, which I think is great. And then you wrap up with, thank God you're not a real doctor, which I think is just kind of hilarious because, we all want to point the finger at why aren't they figuring this out? Well, it's not easy. And we have to always remember that each individual diagnosed with this disease is unique, as is every environment they're in, every care partner they're with, the time of day. Everything it's all moving parts. And if we don't give good, thorough information, the poor doctors don't have a chance.
You're exactly right.
To try to get to it, and it's very easy for us to point the finger at them, but we really, as individuals living with this disease as well, we have to do our jobs well too, and we have to be very, very specific in order to make a difference. So, Dr. Camp, I thank you so much for coming out to be with us today. If you want to go to the Center for Applied Research in Dementia, you can go to www.cen4ard.com, and that's Center for Applied Research in Dementia. And then don't forget about their new caregiver website as well, livingbetterwithdementia.com. Lots and lots of great resources there. Any last message that you'd like to give to our audience before you have to go?
Well, I want to thank you and Michelle for this opportunity, and I'd just like to reiterate the idea of treating every person with respect, dignity, and equality. If we do that, we will live a better life ourselves. And so what we've found in many times is that when you learn how to work effectively with a person with dementia, when you live these values, you wind up having a better life yourself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very, very much so. I know I found that for myself. I was able to reduce my stressors significantly when I stopped trying to control everything, and when I accepted things for what they were, and again, really allowed me to play and get more creative, which makes life a lot more exciting and a lot more fun as well. And So I thank you for all you're doing. It was great to have you on the show with us today, and we'd love to have you back sometime in the future. And best of luck to your new website, livingbetterwithdementia.com. And I look forward to hearing all the great work that you're doing in the future and the significance that you're making around the world.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Okay. Have a great day now. Bye now.
You too. Bye-bye.
So before we get into open mic for the second half, I am just going to make a couple of announcements for our mid-program highlight. Our last radio show, actually, I did a replay of the Australian team with Colin McDonnell of the Starrett Lodge and his group, Uniting Care Aging. It was just a fascinating conversation. If you go to our homepage as well, alzheimerspeaks.com, there you will find a film done about their work. I was able to meet with this group and was lucky enough to meet with the team. There was, 10 or 12 of them that were over here 2 evenings in Wisconsin. They were kind of here on tour, went all over the U.S., and I was able to have dinner with them. So I got about 8 hours of their time, and it was absolutely fascinating, the work they're doing, the passion they have to make a difference, and they wanted to see what the heck we're doing here in the U.S. Because they want to build another model. They've got a really cool one over there, but they want to improve that even more. The film is called Finding the Why: Enabling Active Participation in Life in Aged Care. And that's really what Dr. Camp was talking about, putting on that detective hat and find the why. Why are the reactions what they are, and why should and how should people connect? How do you give that dignity back to people and make those wonderful connections? So again, that show, all of our shows here on Alzheimer Speaks are podcast and can be grabbed. We do have Dr. Al Powers going to be joining us on the 15th, along with Mira Botanis, who's the author of When Caring Takes Courage. Both are going to be talking about books. Al has done some significant things. He's very involved in global dementia care culture and shifting that. So looking forward to his new book. I also did a replay, since I was out of town traveling so much last week. We did a replay for Dementia Chats on driving with dementia. And if you haven't seen that, it was a 2-hour it was just an hour chat that we did on that one. We did a 2-hour radio show that I also refer to on driving with dementia, which was absolutely fabulous. Our next webinar will be coming up next Tuesday on the 8th. And I'm not quite sure what we're going to talk about. We are always pretty loose on that. Those are free webinars where our experts are those with dementia. On the blog, there are several great articles. One is just pointing to some great resources for caregivers and care partners from ARP. Most of them have to do with dementia. I think there's one that doesn't, but all caregiving pretty much applies and can be reapplied to different situations. We had a great article submitted by the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation called Exercise is the Key to Improving Motor Skills in People with Dementia. Lots of activity on that, many comments. I posted that to LinkedIn, and I can't even count all the comments and the reposts and things. People really, really enjoyed that article. And then there was a video that I was involved in with Gary LeBlanc, who has the Common Sense Caregiver, and he and I and Harry Urban here in Pennsylvania and Norms McNamara of the UK talked about dementia-friendly communities and what that's like. And that's just a short 30-minute, I want to say it's 30-minute video that was done, but people seem to be liking that. And Michelle, our wonderful intern here, did a great little article, and her articles always get wonderful comments and feedback on normal. What is normal? Michelle, do you want to talk a little bit about that article, normal, what that was about, and where that came from?
Yep. As you know, I work at a senior center, and I've had people just asking me in general what I would consider normal. And it's a question that stumps me because I don't know really what normal is completely for me, let alone everybody else. And so it just that is what kind of kicked it off. And then I started thinking about, well, Alzheimer's and dementia aren't a normal part of aging, and sometimes people just kind of accept that once you get old, it's something that's going to happen. And so that's just kind of where that came from and why I decided to write it.
Okay. Well, good. Well, like I said, you do such a great job with all of your articles in terms of engaging people. Really appreciate it very much. We are going to go to open mic right now. So if anybody has any questions or comments, you can either use the chat box to post a question, and we'll see if we can answer it, or if you want to make a comment, you can always call into the show. Again, that number is 714-364-4757. That's 714-364-4757. Michelle, was there anything in particular that you wanted to chat about at all?
Not in particular, I don't think.
Okay. How has your Michelle just launched not too long ago a memory cafe at her senior center? How's that been going?
We had 11 people at the last one, but everybody else had emailed me. They either had plans that they had been planning for a long time. Some were sick, and then some were just out saying that we keep getting it. We're going to push it out again in newspapers and stuff to see if we can grab some more.
Oh, yeah.
Some more people for it.
I'm sure it'll be fine. And again, that 11 to 15 is actually, in my opinion, like the perfect size. It doesn't get too big. It's still very, it's just a small enough group to be able to have great interaction and be intimate, which is absolutely wonderful. I do want to let people know that I will be posting a new film, and I'm just digging through my emails right now, that I looked at it last night late. I was up working until 3 in the morning on a chapter for a book I'm writing, and I thought I need to look at this. And my friend Kathy Greenblatt has pulled together another brilliant film about person-centered care. And her and Corinne with I think it's Fire Film is the name of her company, have just done an excellent job. This will be one that people are going to want to watch. It'll be used for training. You'll be seeing it at conferences. They did the one with the UK group that I just visited. They have this one, and there's going to be a third one coming down the pike. But the footage is fabulous. The content is just absolutely marvelous. And if you're trying to motivate people and get them to understand the importance of person-centered care, these films will really, really help on that stage. I'm just looking at comments here. Let's see. Elva had noted, many advocates say that Alzheimer's is not part of normal aging, but I'm thinking more along the lines of Dr. Whitehouse's thinking that dementia is part of normal aging. Some brains simply age faster than others, and we don't know why. And I think, Elva, that's a really interesting concept, because when you look at the numbers of people that do have some form of dementia, you kind of wonder. I mean, the odds are pretty high, especially as we age, that we're going to get some form of it. And we already know that our brain cells start dying off at the age, in our 20s. And so, what really is this? They're not sure. And they really haven't been able to pin down what's causing it. But the thing that we do know for sure is the importance of social interaction. And that seems to be finally getting the attention it deserves. But we can't get people to interact when they're still fearful. And that's where the awareness piece comes in, so greatly, in all of this. But good comments there, Elva. I'm wondering if anybody, let's see, we've got somebody on the line here, so let me just see who this might be. You're live and on the air. Did you have a question that you wanted to ask? Somebody had just called in. Was there a question that you wanted to ask? It looks like a label, maybe a pearl. LaBelle, are you on the line?
Oh, no, I didn't have a question. I just came in to listen.
You're just listening. Okay, sometimes people don't push the button, so I thought, well, I'll see. Well, we would love to talk to you if you had a question or a comment. So I will put you back on mute, and if you think of one, just go ahead and push one, and we'll call you in. I'll do my job right next time. How's that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we never know with that. And I thought, well, we opened it up for open mic, so I thought maybe somebody did have a question. I'm fairly excited. I just was out in Wisconsin last week and meeting with them, and WALA, which is the Wisconsin Assisted Living Association, is going to be putting out a big conference next March. And we're going to be doing a dementia initiative over there. So we had a big meeting on that, which was quite fun and very exciting. And so looking forward to how all of that pulls together. We kind of planned out it was kind of a pre-conference 4-hour piece that we're doing, and talks of maybe even doing an all-day initiative. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not, because it's a huge conference. But we'll see. The chatter is going very, very good, and I'm getting excited. I'm finally making my travel plans to go out to Pennsylvania. Going to be speaking to probably 3 or 4 different groups out there come October, which I'm really looking forward to, and I'll be pushing that information out as well, because I always like to be able to meet with people in the area if they're available when I'm traveling. It looks like Terry's got a comment here in the chat box. She says, response to brain cells dying may be more attributed to toxins in the environment. Studies used to show that IQ stabilizes at grade 2. Then they found it stabilized at 14. Then the age got pushed up to 23-ish. So she says what they've concluded is that IQ never truly levels out or stabilizes. The brain cell growth and new connections are a result of stimulation and new learning, which makes a lot of sense, which makes an awful lot of sense. So thank you, Terry, for making that comment. Let's see here. If there was anybody else who wanted to make a comment or had a question that they wanted to pose, please utilize your chat box, or you can call in at 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. In the meantime, I just want to, again, mentioned the Purple Angel Project. Again, anybody can get involved with that. It's just the new global symbol for dementia, and it can be used by individuals or companies or organizations to help raise awareness of dementia. We'd like the Purple Angel to be as well known and as well branded as the pink ribbon for breast cancer. You see, how powerful that pink ribbon has been, people pulling together in celebration of life and collaborations. It's pretty marvelous, and that's what we need to happen with dementia. Again, if you're looking for an Alzheimer's Association anywhere in the world, check out Alzheimer's Disease International. The Alzheimer's Studies Group has a couple of trials. One is their third clinical trial for tau. Another is a newer study on frontal temporal lobe dementia. And then don't forget the holistic approaches offered by the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. Here you'll find things not only with food and nutrition and exercise, but meditation. Pretty fascinating stuff in terms of their work. The Lewy Body Association, the Association for Frontal Temporal Degeneration, and the National Aphasia Association all have specific information for certain symptoms of different dementias, and they can be great resources for you. And then Music First with Choral Health. Again, leveraging music to really change our moods, make us calm, make us happy, help us go to sleep, help us wake up. We forget how important music can be in our lives. And then Puzzle with Me or with Max Wallach also gives free puzzles out to people. And the Jiminy Wicked program, again, an educational and fun croquet game for all that's been adapted for those with dementia. I think, let's see, Elva has a note here. She said she doesn't care for the purple angel symbol because she doesn't believe in the supernatural, but she liked the knotted handkerchief for the memory symbol that Dr. Camp mentioned. She hadn't heard of that before, and actually I had not either. And, I think personally I like the purple angel just because it is a global symbol, and I think we do need one symbol. I don't know if we'll ever get one that everybody likes, but I can appreciate, that if you're going to attach the supernatural to that, a lot of times people have said they wouldn't even know that it was an angel if somebody didn't call it an angel. So some people have called it by a different name, utilizing the same symbol to get around that. So, everybody's got to do what they have to do, and we have to be respectful of everyone's beliefs. So I appreciate your comments on that. Michelle, anything else that you want to talk about? Otherwise, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show here, even though it's a little bit early.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I know I've got lots of deadlines. I'm under a crunch for a book chapter. I need to review that one more time before I push the button and have a long list of things to do. So I appreciate everybody's time today. The comments and interaction was fabulous. And Elva's asking, do I have a book title for my book? Actually, this is a chapter I'm writing for the University of Minnesota. And this particular chapter that they've asked me to write is going to be on social media and how that has affected our health care. And I'm working on a couple of books myself. One is my bald chicken story, which is just kind of a fun story, getting people to think about how we care for one another, as well as one that will be more on my emotional-based training program. So I've had one publisher approach me to get going on that. So lots of things in the hopper, not enough time in the day, same old, as everybody has with that. So, again, appreciate having everybody with us. Michelle, we'll see you next time, and we will talk to you all very soon. Thanks again so much. Again, appreciate your likes and your clicks and ability to share the show with your sphere and your people on Facebook or LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. The more we can push it out there, having information available for people who are in need, the more likely they're going to grab it when they're ready. Because like with everything, you can't force this information on people. But the more normal it feels, the more acceptable that it's out there, and the easier it is to come by, ups the odds that it'll get into the right hands when people need it. We'll talk to you next Tuesday. Have a wonderful week. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Hi, this is Suzanne Newman, host of the Answers for Elders podcast and radio show. We are the North Star that guides you through the complicated journey of senior care with trusted experts in money, law, living solutions, and more. So join us on this station, your favorite podcast channel, or just go to AnswersForElders.com. Meet the Wayshowers who will help your journey go a lot easier.